Hey Cupcakes, it's Mushroom, and we are back on Ark Survival Ascended. We are less than 2 weeks away from the release of the center, and I've been working away on content for it. But I missed you guys, so I wanted to do a fun one today. We are doing our first ever installment of a series I wanted to call Mighty or Just Meat. Are these creatures worth a spot in your tribe? We are going to finally shine a spotlight on the creatures your Rexes and Gigas have been munching away on during meat runs for the last 7 months. Are these creatures really worth a spot in your tribe? Or are they just useful to fill up your feeding troughs? Let's get into it to find out with our first creature. We're going to start off on the eastern side of the island, where you walk through the island's vast swamp on your Rex, chomping on anything in your way. As you're chomping away, you may notice a toxic character effect, and you look down to see a little frog licking at your ankles. It only takes a couple bites and you get a tasty bundle of meat. But is the Beezle Buffo really worth more? The little frog was one of the first creatures added to the game, and has its own following of dedicated survivors always looking to start their own little frog armies, but in general, they're a very uncommon sight in a base. What makes these guys possibly underrated and underused is how great of a travel mount they are, not just on land, but especially in the water. Speeding through the Ark's oceans is incredibly fun on a Beezle Buffo, but the real draw of taming one of these is the huge amount of cementing paste you can gather. The frog may not be a fighter, but harvesting bugs with it will provide massive amounts of cementing paste. So you will never have to worry about other survivors leaving wood in beaver dams. The Beezle Buffo is definitely more than just a creature you munch on to fill up your troughs, and it's definitely worthy of a spot in your base. So it's definitely in the mighty category for me. To find the next creature we are putting to the test, we are going to have to race to the beaches of the island. Here lives a forgotten about creature that is often only remembered by survivors when they need meat and hide, the Lystro. The little reptile is easy to walk over and not notice as it's tiny and can't even be ridden. While it cannot fight, the Lystro makes for a perfect prey for any survivor of any level. But does this make the little creature just meat and not worthy of a spot living in your base? Before you decide, consider the Lystro's special ability. When you pet your teamed Lystro, it provides an XP buff to you and your creatures, as well as providing small eggs for kibble. This is a useful ability, and for some survivors, worth keeping around your base. However, it is not worth it to me, so the Lystro will have to remain in the category of just meat. Our next creature up to the test is another one that's often forgotten about for its smaller size, but somehow always appears to show up to munch on your knocked out teams, the Hyaenodon. These furry little mammals can be found on almost every map and is usually frequent in mountain ranges. I personally have lost many taming urges, as these little menaces will attack while it's missing health, and knocked out and helpless. While the Hyaenodon is not a threat on their own, in a group they can deal moderate damage. That being said, do these guys deserve a shot in your base? While being much smaller than Ark's other canine, the direwolf, Hyaenodon are too small to actually ride. The only way to make use of them in a fight is to have them follow you while you ride a larger creature, which can be really tedious, and often their damage is not really worth the trouble. However, these little guys can be useful in your base when equipped with a meat pack, which will make the meat last 8 times longer, though it does not work with wyvern milk. When you progress along the arcs long enough and you're able to build yourself a refrigerator, it unfortunately renders the ability worthless. Unfortunately for that, I will have to label the Hyaenodon as very adorable, but unfortunately, just meat. And remember, Cupcakes, these are just my very unserious, fun opinions. If you like these creatures, just tame them. I have a Hyaenodon in my base on Scorched Earth called Meatstick just because he's a cool guy. The next creature being put to the test is another that I bet 90% of you guys actually forgot. We are going back to the swamps of the island to find this guy, who often will be hiding low in the water or sunbathing between the mangrove trees, the Dimetrodon. These reptiles are slow moving and cannot be ridden, so using them as a fighting or travel mount is out of the question. While the Dimetrodon will definitely attack if it's provoked, the damage is minimal and in my opinion, not worth aiming for a fight. However, the Dimetrodon do have a unique trait that could be very useful to some survivors: egg incubation. Sometimes eggs require varying temperatures to hatch, and torches just can't do the job. So Dimetrodon can come in very handy, especially early game. As you progress along the arcs and unlock air conditioners, it turns this useful arc creature virtually useless. This being said, unfortunately, the Dimetrodon are going to be added to the just meat category to fill up your troughs. Our fifth creature up to the test can only be found in one place on the island, the vast oceans. We must dive deep underwater, where you will be gliding through the currents on your torso, munching away at everything in sight when you come across a tiny light in the dark depths. After you crunch down, you realize you just ate an anglerfish. These little fish are one of the ugliest creatures you can come across, and one of the weakest too. The little fish is able to be ridden and is actually surprisingly faster than it looks, fast enough to outrun its predators. As with the other creatures on this list, the anglerfish has a very high upside. It is the absolute best silica pearl collector. The majority of silica pearl deposits on the island are actually in the deep sea, and just in the water in general, so the anglerfish is very useful. And currently, they don't have a replacement in the game for its skill. That being said, undeniably the anglerfish is much more than just meat, and rightfully deserves a spot in your base. This has been so much fun, but remember, some creatures don't need to be useful. Some creatures are just fun to have around, and still deserve a spot in the game. If you agree, let me know, and if you disagree, then yell at me down in the comments too. If you like this video, please remember to like and subscribe to join the mushroom party on our little adventure through the arcs, especially with the center coming around the corner. And thank you guys so much for being here. So until next time, stay fresh, cupcakes.